make sure we have everybody can hear the speakers moving on. Other than that, let's get started, John.
Good evening. My name is John Steinman. I'm the Executive Director of the Iowa Chamber Alliance. The Iowa Chamber Alliance is the coalition of the 16 largest chamber and economic development organizations across the state of Iowa. I appreciate the opportunity to offer brief comments here this evening on the issue of preemption of minimum wage and other items. This is an issue that was brought to the Chamber Alliance by our members in our communities. In the past couple of years, we've seen efforts at the local level to adjust minimum wage, increase minimum wage, both at the county and municipal level, and we felt like it was important for us to address that because what it's led to is an uneven landscape where we have different minimum wage and the prospect of further variance in minimum wage by county and by city. And that creates a challenging environment for employers. And so when we look at businesses that sometimes have the same ownership, same kind of operation, but they're in different parts of town or in different counties and have different minimum wages, that begins to get challenging for an employer to comply. It also creates this kind of uncertainty as some of the enforcement on these laws is a little bit still in question. And so we were asked to weigh in with respect to establishing a universal statewide wage, which we believe is the best way to go about it, and the adjustments can be made at a statewide level. And we believe that that's important for consistency for businesses that are operating here today. We also believe that that's important for how Iowa puts its foot forward as we try to attract businesses and enjoy economic growth from bringing in new businesses to the state of Iowa. We have a saying in economic development that if you're explaining, you're losing. And Iowa already has a couple of categories, most notably our income tax, where there's an asterisk by it, and it requires significant explaining to let outsiders know what our actual taxes are. We start to get into that with minimum wage, and it's not so much that companies are looking to come here and locate and pay the minimum wage. It's just there are a lot of factors that are tied to what a minimum wage might be, and we need to be able to offer what the wage is for the state of Iowa. And so as we look at the policy, we want to have a statewide universal policy that is predictable and that we can market, say this is what the wage is for the state of Iowa, so we can put our time and efforts into investing for Iowa's future and trying to create jobs and raise wages for Iowa's working families. So appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Connie Ryan, Executive Director of the Interfaith Alliance of Iowa and Action Fund. I appreciate also the opportunity to speak tonight. We represent many people of faith and no faith across our state who want Iowa legislators to stand up for our state's reputation of fairness, a state where when you work hard, you should be able to earn a good wage and have the means to raise your family. It is undeniable that the current minimum wage does not accomplish that goal. In today's world, a family in Iowa cannot make it on $7.25 an hour. $7.25 per hour for a full-time worker equals approximately $15,000. $15,000 a year, $1,250 a month. The average rent in Des Moines for a two-bedroom apartment is $834. Federal poverty guidelines for a family of four is $24,600. 29 states have raised the minimum wage beyond the federal minimum. 12 states include an automatic cost of living increase each year, and the majority of Americans support raising the minimum wage. Beyond the data, this is a moral issue. It is an issue of fairness, justice, and compassion. Raising the minimum wage in Iowa is the moral and fair thing to do for Iowans who struggle each day, to figure out how they are going to provide just the basics for their families, providing a roof over their children's head, food in their children's bellies, and clothes as their children grow. Local governments understand the needs of families in their communities. Several have taken the just, compassionate, and common sense step to raise the minimum wage in their community to meet the needs of their residents in place of the legislature's inaction. House File 295 is unjust and extreme. It would skew Iowa away from how Iowa has historically governed, allowing local governments to go above and beyond basic guidelines of the state to meet local needs. The inaction of the Iowa legislature to raise the minimum wage to help Iowa families rise out of poverty is simply shameful. House File 295, an attempt to control local government's ability to stand for their residents, is also shameful. Interfaith Alliance of Iowa Action Fund asks you to reject House File 295 and find a way this session to increase the minimum wage for Iowa families in large and small communities across this state, including many families in your districts. Thank you.
Thanks, Connie. PMC? The gentleman from PMC? Is that? I guess if, Mr. Menning, is that you? Okay, then, Mr. Arnold.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Arnold. I'm the senior minister at First Christian Church here in Des Moines. Thank you for the opportunity to share my opposition to House File 295. When it comes to the minimum wage, it appears to me that we have two competing visions in our society. The first is a vision where my neighbors and parishioners continue to suffer under stagnant minimum wage and where unscrupulous employers subsidize their employee benefits with charitable and governmental services. Or second, a vision where employers and employees enjoy an equitable relationship, where communities curb crime, healthcare costs, and other unintended effects of poverty, and where dignity and pride of honest labor are prized over dependency and retaining the status quo. Actually, the former is no vision at all. It is the reality of the 9-year reign of $7.25 per hour. It is the reality of far too many Iowan households who have the sad but necessary choice of either spending time with family and thereby remaining dependent on charitable and governmental services, or taking a second, even a third job, gaining independence, but in doing so sacrificing their family. This is the reality of some of the hardest working people I know. These are neighbors and parishioners who work 60 or more hours a week and still know the struggles and stressors unique to poverty. Our Polk County supervisors understood this reality, and along with supervisors from other counties in Iowa, they responded to the needs of low-wage laborers within their jurisdictions. $10.75 an hour for Polk County is far from the utopia of the vision I described, where love of neighbor triumphs over love of profit. But it's a step in the right direction. But now, with House File 295, you, the representatives of the people, are poised to refuse Iowa's workers their due raise and to further preemptively denying local government the right to respond to the needs of their citizens. As a person of faith, I have for you a moral message. The wages of low-wage workers, wages kept back by the fraud of corporate profiteering, these wages, this $7.25 per hour, is crying out. It's crying out for the sins committed against the poor. 1 in 5 Iowan children live in food insecurity. It does not mean that we have to be an economist to understand the direct link between food insecurity and the minimum wage.
Thank you,
Listen
Reverend.
to these cries. Listen to the poor, for you shall be judged for your empathy.
Reverend,
I
your
urge
time's
you
up.
to vote no on House File 295.
Thank you for coming. John? Go ahead, John.
Good evening. John Moines, Regulatory Affairs Manager with the Petroleum Marketers and Convenience Stores of Iowa. I'm here before you today on behalf of the 800 small business owners and operators that make up the Petroleum Marketers and Convenience Stores of Iowa. PMCI members can be found in all 99 of Iowa's counties and serve as the fabric for Iowa's petroleum distribution network. PMCI members provide Iowans access to the fueling options of their choice: ethanol blended gasoline, biodiesel, along with the everyday items of convenience that Iowans need. I speak before you today in support of House File 295 and encourage you to continue to move this bill along in its process. Although the overwhelming majority of PMCI business owners already pay a wage that exceeds the federal requirement, House File 295 is critical to our small business owners in Iowa, and it provides consistency across the state. By consolidating control of the issues addressed in House File 295, small business owners across Iowa will be put on equal footing with regard to conditions of employment and the sale or marketing of consumer merchandise. Thank you for your time.
Chris?
I'm Darren.
All right, Darren, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Darren Beck, and I am not here to debate the minimum wage. I live in Cedar Falls, and I've owned my own restaurants for 34 years. We currently have 12 establishments that employ right around 350 people, all in Iowa. We have establishments in Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Cedar Rapids, and Des Moines. I'd like to thank you for allowing us to speak in regards to the employment portion of the preemption bill. I am here on behalf of my companies and the Iowa Restaurant Association. We are in support of one minimum wage in the state of Iowa that's set by the state of Iowa. Multiple rules, regulations, and laws regarding the minimum wage within our state is just bad business. It is very difficult for business owners who do business in multiple communities to run their business under the conditions that counties and cities create when they make laws that differ from state law regarding wages. In many cases, businesses literally across the street from each other find themselves in a situation where each has a different minimum wage requirement. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to think of the ways this is detrimental to the business, the owners of the businesses, and the employees who work in them. It creates an incredibly unfair playing field and confuses the prospective employees' expectations in damaging ways. It's hard enough to compete in today's market with your competitors, but imagine competing with yourself when you have businesses in multiple districts with differing wage requirements. For the restaurant industry, this has been especially devastating. How do you explain to your employees in one store that they aren't as valuable as the employees in your other stores, or competitor stores for that matter? Especially when your margins are so thin, you have no idea how you're even going to cope with the higher minimums set by local governments. It creates an incredibly unstable business environment, and that is bad for Iowa no matter how you slice it. Our company has avoided growth into any county in Iowa that has raised minimum wages on their own. However, it's getting very hard to avoid them at this point as more and more begin discussing the issue. I truly believe this is one of the biggest issues facing small businesses in Iowa, as it creates enormous instability and predictability for business owners. The restaurant industry's wages and how employees are compensated is largely misunderstood, and our industry feels the pain more than many when wages are recklessly raised. When the legislature takes up raising the minimum wage, there is a tremendous amount of statistics, lobbying, and educating that occurs to give legislators all of the information they need to decide what's best for Iowa. When it happens on a county or city level, that is usually not the case, and small businesses are devastated. I know there are a number of restaurants contemplating whether they can even stay in business in this environment of reckless minimum wage raises. I have friends who have been deeply affected by this issue, and we ourselves are facing the same issue in a few of our stores. It's important to know that our industry is not against raising the minimum wage, but rather we are against anyone but the state or federal government raising it, where we have an opportunity to educate lawmakers during the process. On behalf of my companies and the Iowa Restaurant Association, I ask you to support at the minimum wage portion of HF 295, and I thank you again for allowing us to be heard, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Shearer. I am proud to be a board member of the Iowa Policy Project, and I have with me a new summary of some of the extensive research that our very qualified economists and researchers. Turn your mic on. Turn your mic on, please. Thank you. Good evening. My name's Jennifer Shearer. I'm proud to be a board member of the Iowa Policy Project, and I'm sending around the room a handout that summarizes some of the extensive research that's already been available on this issue for several years, conducted by our really very qualified staff of economists and researchers at that organization. I am not going to spend time speaking about those statistics and numbers because I believe that all of the people in this room are very, very well informed and very well aware of the impact economically and fiscally for our state of the minimum wage increases. But I also want to say that this is a very personal issue for me, and I have the privilege of carrying with me tonight the stories of some of the hardest working women I know to share with you. And I think it's fitting in this week where we're about to celebrate International Women's Day that we get to hear from the voices of some of those most affected by the minimum wage increases that have already gone into effect and that are about to go into effect in some of the counties in our state. I'm also here as a fourth generation Iowan who until this year has always been very proud to say I was born in this state. And I want to say that I'm here in part in memory of my grandmother. I was the daughter of Danish immigrants on a Humboldt County farmstead. At age 10 was put out to become a domestic laborer. At a time when we had no child labor laws after her mother died. We had no collective bargaining laws. We had no minimum wage laws. And who would be appalled that her granddaughter has to be in the State House tonight to argue in a context where we have some state leaders who want to take us back to that time. But I want to share with you some statements from 3 Iowa women who couldn't be here tonight because they are working, and in some cases because they could not afford transportation to be here themselves. I'm going to start with Mazahir Salih, who is a Johnson County resident, and I'm just going to read you part of what she wanted to share. Back in 1997, she says, when I came to this country, I worked at McDonald's and earned a minimum wage of $5.25. Even back then, that wasn't enough. I had to work 2 jobs to survive. Now it's 18 years later, the cost of living has gone up, and I've become a mother with children. But the state and federal minimum wage has only increased $2 in all those years to $7.25. Last year, I worked in a factory in Iowa City earning $8 an hour, only slightly above the minimum wage. My husband and I were both working in that factory, and as much as we worked, we still didn't make ends meet. At the same time, we were working many hours and didn't have time to spend with our children, to go over homework with them. It affects their learning. It doesn't just affect my family.
Jennifer, thank you very much. Your time is up. I appreciate it. Mike?
Hi, my name is Mike Holmes from Des Moines. I'm with Jethro's Barbecue and Splash Seafood Bar and Grill. We have 7 locations in central Iowa and employ just over 600 people. I'd like to thank the legislators for taking time to listen to the employment issues of preemption. At Jethro's, we take great pride in what we have done over the past 9 years to improve the lives of central Iowans. In that time, we've grown from a company of 30 to employing over 600 people who we all consider family. Preemption is not a minimum wage issue. At Jethro's, we have already set a wage level that's far above what many would propose. Preemption is an issue of how we pay our employees. It's hard for us to grow without a set state standard of how we pay our or how our employees are paid. Right now, it's like the Wild West. Every one of Iowa's 99 counties can set their own wage standards. And in that county, every city can set its own wage standard as well. Trying to grow a business is nearly impossible with the level of uncertainty, the county to city variations that are going on right now. County to county and city to city consistency is important for growth and planning. Jethro's has 2 restaurants in West Des Moines, one that's in Polk County, another that's in Dallas County. How can we staff our Dallas County restaurant without a level playing field between these counties? We are also opening in a new location in Ames this summer. We had looked at opening one in Iowa City. One of the main reasons we chose Ames over Iowa City were the questions about the variance of wages across the Johnston County area versus the consistency we expect in Story County. Jethro's prides itself on providing good-paying local jobs. We're always willing to have a conversation concerning wage issues and how to protect our employees and the opportunities that they have. We would just ask that this happens at one table to ensure every Iowan has the same securities. We are fully in support of House 295. I would like to thank the legislators for their time.
Thank you very much. Jack?
Hi, I'm Jack Reardon from Clive. I wanted to start out with a quote from Abraham Lincoln. The legitimate object of governments is to do for a community of people whatever they need to have done, but cannot do at all, or cannot so well do for themselves in either separate or individual capacities. This bill isn't good for the community. I come from a low-wage family. My mom's a single mother. Since 2011, we've had to move 4 houses. Actually, an hour before I came here, I found out that our house is being sold and we have nowhere to go. And part of the problem with that is that my mom is a low-wage earner, like I said. She can't have enough money to buy a house, so renting, she ends up losing money. There was times where we didn't have food. You know, I remember going as a kid every day to McDonald's with my brother. So what this creates is, you know, we don't have enough money for food, so we go to these cheap places. That's really unhealthy. I mean, do we want children here in our state to not eat healthy food? Things like that, and I guess that's my point. So,
thank you, Jack. Appreciate it. Mr. Triplett. Go ahead, Mike.
Good evening. My name is Michael Triplett, and I am Legislative Counsel for the Greater Iowa Apartment Association. Thank you, Representative Heifel, Vice Chair Hager, Ranking Member Stade, and the rest of the committee for allowing me to speak tonight. I speak to you on behalf of our professionals who manage over 33,000 rental units across the state of Iowa. We support House File 295. We view the local ordinances that require landlord participation in the otherwise voluntary federal housing choice voucher program as an egregious overreach and a misuse of local home rule authority. It violates the very nature of the landlord-tenant relationship and infringes upon the rights of all property owners to maintain, improve, and use their properties without undue interference. This precedent must be stopped. Simply put, property owners should not be forced by local governments to sign a lease with a tenant and a contract with the federal government in order to earn a return on their investment. Landlords and tenants should have the freedom to contract for any terms both find reasonable, provided that they do not violate state law. Iowa Code Chapters 562A and 562B are the exclusive laws governing the landlord-tenant relationship in Iowa. Until we have a comprehensive federal landlord-tenant law, which ought to be never, preemption in this realm is entirely reasonable, and we support your efforts to do so. There are landlords in Iowa who participate in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. That some choose to participate in this voluntary program is not a tribute to their motives, nor is it a condemnation of those landlords who choose not to participate. It is a business decision made by each property owner based on their own best determination of how to use their property, and those decisions should be made independently of local government. Article 1, Section 1 of the Iowa Constitution enshrines the inalienable rights enjoyed by Iowans, including the right to acquire, possess, and protect property. This bill preserves those rights. We urge the legislature to support House File 295. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat?
Hi, my name is Pat Bowen, and I'm from Johnson County, Iowa City, where minimum wage has been raised. And thus far, I know of no businesses that have gone out of business because of it. If businesses would pay a living wage, we taxpayers who you represent would not have to subsidize people using food stamps and other government assistance. Also, your employees would be more loyal to you, and you would have less turnover. Local control is what the people want. Living wages is what the people need. Additionally, I am a member of 100 Grannies for a Livable Future. We have been working locally to ban single-use plastic bags. This preemption bill is against that, trying to let the local communities decide what is good for their communities. This is a local issue. We should be able to decide what is good for our communities. So I have one question. Well, first of all, I'd like to encourage you to vote no. But my one question to you is, why are you letting the Koch brothers run our state? Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Matt?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members, thank you very much for your time. I am Matt Everson, the State Director for the National Federation of Independent Business. We represent almost 11,000 small business members here in Iowa, and we support House File 295. This bill is about keeping the momentum of the tremendous economic growth Iowa has seen over the past few years. It is also about jobs and the predictability that goes along with running and owning a business. To think that having dozens, if not hundreds, of different regulatory regimes across the state is good for the worker or the business is anything but opposite. It would only do harm to our state's economic growth, our workforce, and have serious unintended consequences. But don't take my word for it. I would like to read an excerpt from a business owner in Wapello County who wanted me to read his statement here tonight. My name is, and I quote, "My name is Randy Bradley. I am a small business owner in the Burger King franchise system. I built my first restaurant in Ottumwa almost 27 years ago. I am Iowa born, originally from Glenwood, and always loyal to the best interests of our state. You have all heard and understand the arguments for allowing local variances in the minimum wage, but let's talk about what some of the unintended consequences might be if that is allowed. Let's say it happens at the city level. There are two potential problems with that. If prices go up in response to wage increase in a lower income city, say Ottumwa, you can have people who are living just above the poverty line now slip down into the poverty level as things grow and increase in price. Or suppose in response to an increase in Des Moines, businesses begin to move out to West Des Moines, Clive, Urbandale, or Johnston. You know there will be a good share of those minimum wage workers who lost their jobs that will not have transportation to get out to the suburbs to recover their positions. Let's talk another potential scenario. Wapello County has only 3 county supervisors, and it is a strong union county. Perhaps the unions band together and elect 3 of their union leaders to those offices. Let's say for a given manufacturing situation, union workers are capable of producing $3 an hour more of product than the minimum wage worker, but their pay scale is $6 an hour higher. In that case, it still redounds to the benefit of both the minimum wage workers and the business to keep those workers in place. But say the new county supervisors raise the minimum to only $1 an hour less than the union scale. Now the less skilled minimum wage workers who have fewer prospects for other jobs get laid off and replaced with a union worker who already had better prospects for other employment due to their advanced training. This potential control of a county board by 3 people with a vested interest could not happen at the state level where there are so many more legislators from all around the state. For my final point, let's say some county gets a little too enthusiastic about this and raises their minimum by an excessive amount. Despite their good intentions, there are
Thank you, Matt. We're out of time for you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it. Supervisor.
Good evening. My name is Tom Hawkins-Smith. I'm with the Polk County Board of Supervisors. You're probably aware Polk County is one of the 4 counties that has a minimum wage ordinance that we have passed and are prepared to implement. I want to give you a little just background on our process, so those of you that aren't from the central Iowa area are familiar with the process we went through. First of all, Polk County is working on a hunger-free Polk County initiative where we know that 1 in 5 children and 1 in 8 adults don't have steady access to food, have serious food insecurity issues. We're in the process of trying to raise about $10 million to address hunger in Polk County. We've raised over $5 million privately now to try to address that issue. During that process, we're talking to multiple families here in the metro. It became very apparent that one of the components to poverty and food insecurity was the fact that they're working for minimum wage jobs or barely above it. So our county passed a resolution to implement a task force. And our task force began our work last April. Our task force consisted of 2 members being appointed by all 5 members of the Board of Supervisors. So there were 10 members of the task force, 3 members of the Board of Supervisors, including myself, Supervisor Morrow, and Supervisor Brownell. The task force met on 5 separate occasions all summer long in open public discussions. The media was there, had a great dialogue in the community about minimum wage. In September, there was a recommendation made by the task force to the Board of Supervisors to adopt an ordinance. And that ordinance included an increase in the minimum wage in April of this year to $8.75 an hour, and then in January of 2018 to $9.75, and then January of 2019 to 1075. I might add that the task force that we had appointed represented a wide, vast area of our community. We had people from the faith community, folks from small businesses, folks from labor, folks from nonprofits that participated in poverty issues in Polk County. Now, we had 3 readings of our ordinance starting in September and in October. Once again, those meetings were very well attended. We took public comments at all of those meetings. The reason I'm telling you about our process, I think it's important to know that it wasn't just done willy-nilly. We had a process we worked through and engaged the community. After that ordinance was brought before the Board of Supervisors, it passed on a bipartisan vote in Polk County. You know, as you know, 5 of 6 states bordering Iowa have a higher minimum wage than Iowa. 29 states nationally. Dozens of local governments have raised the rate above $7.25. Surprisingly, the majority of the criticism received was not from the community, or not from businesses that you claim to represent. It was from folks who didn't think we set the wage high enough. Our task force, it worked hard, and it's my understanding is that the 4 counties, including Polk County, would have implemented an increase.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Over 85,000 people. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Jessica, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jessica Dunker, and I'm the president and CEO of the Iowa Restaurant Association. There are more than 6,000 eating and drinking establishments in the state of Iowa. They are located in every district, every county, and nearly every community. With more than 150,000 people working in our industry, we employ 1 in 10 working Iowans today. Hospitality is the second largest private sector employer after healthcare. Half of the people in this room have worked in a restaurant at some point in their lives, and 1 in 3 Iowans found their first jobs in our industry. We pride ourselves on being the industry that not only trains America's workforce by providing a range of entry-level positions, but also for being an industry of opportunity where someone can still today start as a dishwasher and end up an owner. In fact, in the past 5 years, the restaurant industry has added middle-class jobs to the marketplace at a rate 4 times stronger than the overall economy. This is according to an analysis of data from the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey. Between 2010 and 2014, the number of restaurant jobs with an annual income between $45,000 and $75,000 jumped 32%. In contrast, the total numbers of jobs in the U.S. economy with income in this range rose just 8%. We are an industry filled with hardworking people, proud to showcase the creativity and hospitality of our state. The Iowa Restaurant Association stands in support of the employment portions of HF 295. To continue to be a vibrant and growing part of the state's economy, we need statewide wage and employment solutions, not a patchwork of county-by-county mandates. We were part of the Polk County Task Force that Supervisor Hawkinsmith talked about. We have shown that we are willing to come together with industry and other groups to discuss improving workers' lives. We will come to the table, but it needs to be one table, not 99 or more. We see this bill as a mechanism that simply clarifies who we discuss wage and other employment issues with, not what they should be. I know you are in conversations about potential amendments to the bill. We would ask that you leave the employment-related portions intact, ensuring that every Iowan, regardless of county or city or neighborhood district, enjoys the same protections and opportunities across our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Josh?
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to join you guys here. My name is Josh Myatt. I'm a student organizer for Iowa State University's Student Action Higher Wage Campaign. When I heard about the opportunity to speak here tonight regarding the current preemption bill, I knew I had to take advantage of this opportunity in order to spread the voice of Iowans all over that felt that they never had a voice. This is my first time speaking at anything like this. So I grew up in a low-wage family in Burlington, Iowa. My parents were separated when I was 6 years old. My mother worked multiple jobs just to make sure we can keep a roof over our heads. My father works long, strenuous hours in a warehouse in order to support my family, myself and my younger sister. Growing up, my family was very politically apathetic. My parents blamed themselves for the situation that we were in. They felt their voice was not relevant. I'm here to speak out in opposition of House Bill 295, or the bill that preempts local control over raising the minimum wage to what best suits the people in their own community. Republicans claim to support small government. How is taking the ability of raising the minimum wage to a living wage from counties and cities supporting small government? Republicans also claim to support Iowans. I'm just trying to figure out which Iowans they are supporting. Mental health services have been cut in Iowa, and that's just not right. Republicans also cut collective bargaining rights from public workers. It's also not right. Their actions tell us that they do not feel that those educating our youth deserve the benefits that they receive themselves. Their actions tell us that they do not think social workers that put themselves in some of the most dangerous houses in our state deserve health care rights. Their actions also tell us that they do not feel that the correctional officers that put themselves in harm's way every single day do not deserve collective bargaining rights, and that's just not right. Finally, Republicans tell us that minimum wage workers are not worth $10, $12, or $15 an hour, and that's definitely not right. In fact, a senator from my hometown, Senator Tom Green, just told me today when he said minimum wage workers are paid what they're worth. Now tell me, is someone worth $7.25 an hour? I don't think so. I think they're worth way more than that. Senator Green and his Republican colleagues do not understand what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. They do not understand what it's like to be a 12-year-old child worrying about.
Hey, thanks, Josh. You're out of time, babe. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see Jason, so Kelly?
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee and share my thoughts on House File 295, the proposed preemption bill aimed to strip local control from cities and counties. My name is Kelly Sawyer, and I am the State Director for Every Child Matters in Iowa, a child advocacy organization seeking to make children and working families a priority. Our interest in this bill relates to the preemption for local government to make decisions that affect their families, friends, and neighbors. In Iowa, 4 counties looked at the needs of working Iowans and realized the state's current minimum wage at $7.25 was simply not enough. They took the initiative and voted to increase their county's minimum wage, and these increases will occur gradually until they reach the approved level, varying from $10.10 to $10.75 per hour. Minimum wage was established as a wage floor for businesses to set employees' salaries. Certainly, employers are able to set a wage higher than the approved minimum wage, and a number of employers have done so. However, there remain a number of industries affecting thousands of Iowans who utilize the minimum wage as the base. For workers employed in these low-wage earning jobs, this is considered their primary support for themselves and their families. It is important to identify and dispel some of the myths about minimum wage. Myth: the minimum wage is for high school students. Truth: only 1 in 6 minimum wage earners are teenagers, and in fact 31% of minimum wage earners are age 40 or older. Myth: minimum wage earners work part-time. Truth: 3/5 of the minimum wage workforce work full-time. Myth: minimum wage earners are single households. Truth: 31% of minimum wage earners are parents. This affects our children too. Another misnomer is a belief that minimum wage is a livable wage. Earning minimum wage equates to about $15,080 per year. If you're a family of 3 with 1 parent and 2 children, a full-time minimum wage job will allow you to qualify for Medicaid, child care assistance, free and reduced lunch, and WIC. The minimum wage is just simply not a sustainable wage to support and raise a family. As you consider your vote, please remember you are not only voting to belittle the local decision-making authority expected of our local government, but you are also voting to potentially cut wages for 85,000 Iowa workers. The workers expecting a pay increase because of the leadership of their county government to provide them with a long overdue increase to the minimum wage. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, very much for coming. Reverend?
Thank you. My name is David Sikelka. I am a pastor in the Des Moines area, Urbandale United Church of Christ. I also serve as in a volunteer capacity as the chair of the board of directors for the Interfaith Alliance of Iowa. I've spent 30 years working in churches, and in all of the communities I've served, the people in my churches have been generous and tireless in helping the food pantries, the shelters, the clothing closets. We feed the hungry and shelter the homeless. It is integral to who we are and what we do as communities of faith. And I have to tell you that in recent years, I kind of feel like we're being played. I feel like the more that we help people, the less their employers feel they need to pay them. And this has to stop. There's something fundamentally wrong with the system. When somebody works all day moving pallets of food onto a semi-truck and then goes home and can't put a plate of food on the table for their children. There's something wrong when somebody makes beds all day long and sleeps in the car at night. I don't think that we can, as citizens, expect that this is going to resolve itself. And I don't think that the state legislature can come up with a minimum wage law that will work equally well in Decorah and Des Moines and Dubuque and DeSoto and the little town of 800 people that I grew up in. I don't think you can pass that kind of legislation. I urge you to vote against House File 295. The next time you go to a restaurant, I want you to look around the room and see who's working there and see how many people look like this is an entry-level job for them. My wife and I ate at a restaurant just a couple days ago, and our server had to be in his 30s. Now, he maybe didn't have any dependents. He maybe lived alone. But it kind of gnawed at me that our server could have kids at home who were going to go to bed hungry that night, possibly, while we ate off of his labor. I urge you to vote against House File 295. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Chris here? All right, Lucas, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Lucas Binkin with the Iowa State Association of Counties. ISAC represents Iowa's 99 counties, 16 affiliate organizations, 870 locally elected officials, and over 17,000 public servants in total. As you know, counties perform state functions at the local level, but they also provide programs and services and make decisions based on the needs and desires of their local jurisdiction. Prior to the adoption of County Home Rule, Iowa operated under Dillon's Rule, where counties had the authority and powers expressly granted to them or clearly implied by state law. The County Home Rule amendment to the Iowa Constitution was adopted overwhelmingly by the voters of Iowa in 1978, and under County Home Rule, counties have the power to act on any matter not explicitly prohibited by state law. Iowa Code Chapter 331-301 states that a county may exercise any power and perform any function it deems appropriate to protect and preserve the rights, privileges, and property of the county and of its residents, and to preserve and improve the peace, safety, health, welfare, comfort, and convenience of its residents. That is exactly what the counties this legislation is targeting are doing. The Board of Supervisors in these counties identified a local issue that they felt needed to be addressed. They realized that the state was not taking action to address it on a statewide basis, and they started to act in order to find a solution for this problem. This is the role and responsibility of locally elected officials when they identify a need within their jurisdiction. House File 295 not only preempts local control of specific issues, but it does so without addressing those issues that cause the local elected officials to act in the first place. Local control is not supposed to be something the legislature believes in until they disagree with specific decisions made at the local level. Let me say again, the ordinances that were passed were done so by locally elected officials who live and work in the communities that they represent and who saw a need in their jurisdiction. If the voters think the actions of these boards of supervisors is not suitable for their county, they will have their say at the next election. Regardless of whether they agree or disagree with every decision that the board makes, we believe the citizens of Iowa value local control. We must let local governments make decisions for their jurisdiction without the legislature placing restrictions when they don't agree with something. House File 295 flies in the face of county home rule, which is rooted in the belief that local governments are best served when locals understand the needs of their citizens and address those needs at the local level. For home rule to truly be meaningful, we must honor it and let it work.
Thank you, Lucas. I have Bridget next, and then you must be Mr. Chapman.
Chris Robinson.
We'll come. You missed your turn a little bit ago. We'll come back to you. Bridget, go ahead.
My name is Bridget Fagan-Reedburn, and I'm a community organizer with Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement Action Fund. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about such an important issue. We are registered opposed to this bill. We oppose the entirety of this, but especially around the employment piece, and that's what I want to really address today. At CCI Action, we deal with workplace issues every single day. Not a day goes by where someone doesn't come into our office or calls us on the phone with a workplace issue. Some folks aren't getting paid at all for the work that they do. Some are being discriminated against in their workplace, or a whole host of other issues by unscrupulous employers. At the root of everyone's problems is the issue of not getting paid enough to make ends meet. For years, we've been at the Capitol lobbying for bills that would improve the lives of everyday Iowans. For years, we've been lobbying for a raise in the minimum wage. Every year, we're told we don't have enough votes, or we'd have to wait another year, or a number of other excuses. 2 years ago, when there was a bill to raise the minimum wage to a measly $8.75, only one Republican voted for the bill in the Senate. This issue was clearly not a priority for most legislators in this state house. While legislators were stalling, life kept getting a little bit harder every year for more workers making minimum wage in this state. The cost of living has grown exponentially in the 8 years since the last minimum wage increase. So much so that the communities called on their supervisors to do whatever they could to do what was in their power to bring some relief to their communities. Supervisors in 4 counties saw the need and raised their local minimum wages. These wage increases, while not even to a living wage, would affect thousands of the most vulnerable Iowans. At the same time, it would boost our local economies because minimum wage works like a stimulus. The more money people have, the more money they spend in our local communities. Now, Republicans want to take away wage increases for low-income Iowans. Where's your compassion for hardworking Iowans? Is this retaliation to the supervisors or the communities who took action? Or are you that disconnected between you and your constituents that you don't see how this will impact real people's lives? Or do you just not care at all? Workers in Lynn, Johnson, Polk, and Wapello finally got to see a little relief, just a little. Your job as a legislator is to think of the people of Iowa and put them first, not big business corporations and what industry groups want you to do or where you get the biggest campaign contribution. You represent the people, and the people want a raise in the minimum wage. The people deserve a raise in the minimum wage, and at the very least, they deserve not to have a raise taken away from them. I urge you to vote no.
Thank you, Bridget. Go ahead, Chris. Mr. Robinson.
My name is Chris Robinson. I'm from Des Moines. First of all, you know, you guys need to have a room big enough to hold everybody instead of having these small rooms like this. And it's just a way to discourage folks, which isn't right. And you need to listen to everybody and hear everybody out, because, you know, you don't know if some people might have took some time off to come here to talk to you guys. And because you guys just don't want to hear them, or you're tired, or like the gentleman over here just got up and walked out because he just doesn't want to hear it anymore. You know, that's a disgrace to the people. You're saying the F you to the people is what you're saying. Exactly what that is saying. Now, you need to also stop lying to the people why this is even happening. Also, you don't even care what the people are saying here. You're just doing this because you have to do it. You're not doing it because you want to do it. You're doing it because you have to do it. And that's sad, because that means you really don't want to listen to the people again. And so $7.25 an hour, you really think that is a livable wage for somebody to make it on today at $7.25? So if you feel that $7.25 is all right for everybody else to live on, that means you folks think $7.25 is all right for you folks to live on too. All right? So why don't you, when you leave here, why don't you go to the governor, tell the governor you folks want to start working for $7.25 too, since you want to make everybody else work for $7.25 and do the things that you're doing to everybody else, and you think that is all right. So if you think it's all right for us, make sure it's all right for you too. And you cheat on the insurance and everything else. You know, you guys ought to be ashamed of some of the things that is going on up here today and how you are treating the people. But that's all right. 2018 is around the corner, and we'll see you again. Oh, no, we won't, because you'll be out of here.
Mr. Chapman, go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to share some comments. Not just me, but many others I hope to represent. My name is Matt Chapman from Waukee, Iowa. I spent my entire working career in food service. My home life wasn't good, and I was on my own at 15. I left school after the 8th grade and went to work. I was the go-to guy in any kitchen, and while I always made $1 or $2 above the minimum wage, it was still hard to get by. When I was younger, I saw hospital rooms only when I was cut, burned, or took a hard fall. I've had surgery on both my hands due to carpal tunnel. I've had one surgery on my knee, and I'm getting another one in a few weeks. The 3 vertebrae in my lower back have no disc left, need to be fused, all from working in restaurants. The point I'm driving at is all this medical care is a subsidy to my employers from the people of Iowa. It is a subsidy because there is no way I could pay for this on the amount of money I made. I also would like to address the myth that most low-wage workers are high school age. The numbers from the National Restaurant Association as of 2014 show that 83.4% of the workforce in food service is over 20 years of age, and 59% are over 25 years in age. And it will only get worse as the Great Recession hasn't recovered for a lot of us. Jobs sent overseas aren't coming back, and unskilled labor has very few options. Going to school for a trade is helpful for some dropouts, but a lot can't do that for the very reason they left school. Many work 2 jobs just to get their family by. And many have been through things that have damaged them to the point where they don't even think they deserve to succeed. And these are the folks earning minimum wage. And to tell other cities they can't raise the minimum wage a bit closer to a living wage is just cruel. How does this help folks that live under and around the poverty line? Who are you looking out for? The unions have been hobbled, workman's comp law is under attack. I will ask again, who does that help? Who are you looking out for? The next time any one of us is in a grocery store and sees someone with a food stamp card, don't be angry at them. Realize this is really corporate welfare. The money they don't have isn't because they're lazy, and no one who works hard 40 hours a week should have to be on food stamps, or get heat assistance, or go to a local food pantry, or be homeless. This is the greatest country on earth, and the richest. But for the unskilled labor who grew up with very little chance at the American dream, it isn't. And it's time we started addressing that. So please quit pulling the rug out from under working Iowans. Vote against the cruel House File 295. The corporations are doing just fine without you.
Good job. Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Good to see you again. Joe?
Good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Joe Stutler, and I am a resident of Marion, Iowa. I am a disabled war veteran. I put my life on the line for all of us, for we the people. Spent 10 years in the Army, another 8 in the National Guard. Came home pretty banged up after the Gulf War, suffered some head trauma, some TBI, post-concussive, and a plethora of other problems. I'm here today to tell you that this bill is a really bad bill for a whole bunch of reasons, but my primary focus on this is the attack on our civil rights. And I say attack on our civil rights because clearly in the bill it goes directly after Iowa Code Chapter 216, Civil Rights. I speak as my own person, not on behalf of any organization, commission, or board that I am a member of, but my experience is that I happen to serve on the Marion, the City of Marion, Civil Rights Commission. So I have a little understanding of the civil rights issues and how this affects my community, my people. This attack has been going on for quite a while, and it's been brought up by not everybody, but there are some landlords. I heard one say on March 3rd of last year, say in my city council meeting, we don't want to have to rent to people that receive benefits. We only want to have to rent to people that earn wages. I'm sitting there as a disabled veteran trying to survive on a disability check. I've qualified for Section 8 in the past. I don't right now. I haven't applied. I'm fortunately married to a wife that works in retail, so not a lot of money there. But the very strange thing is that lady in my city council said, I don't want to have to take your money, my money. And so when it was my turn to speak, I did this. And I pulled out 2 $1 bills. They're the same dollar bill for all intents and purposes. I mean, you could pass them around, but I'm sure in a room full of politicians, I'd never see them again. So I'm not going to do that. But I will tell you about these dollar bills. One of them comes out of my wife's bank account. She's a wage earner, W-2. She works for her money. My dollar bill comes out of my bank account. That's my VA disability check. I haven't worked in several years. And I can't find work, and the work that I can find, I just can't do anymore for a variety of reasons. But somebody in my community said, I don't want to have to rent to you because you get benefits, not wages. And then somebody decided it was a great idea to let's make this code. That's bad. That's really bad. Our liberties we prize, our rights we will maintain, right on our flag. If you are attacking our rights, you should be willing to bleed for them, just like I was willing to bleed to preserve those rights. Now, that shouldn't be a threat or anything, but you should really think hard. Before you hit that button, do I really want to take out a disabled veteran and make him homeless? And if you do, vote yes.
Thank you, Joe.
But don't vote yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Representatives. Good evening. My name is Charles Wishman, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the Secretary-Treasurer of the Iowa Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO. We strongly oppose House File 295, especially the intent of those who drafted this bill to lower the pay of the lowest paid workers in this state. This legislative session, it seems that we are seeing the majority party struggle with the idea of home rule and local control and what it actually means when it comes to employment matters. When it comes to collective bargaining, we've seen Chapter 20 of the Iowa Code ripped up supposedly because we've needed to return more power to the local level, even though it took items off the bargaining table for both local public employers and employees. And however, when it comes to project labor agreements, I guess local governments wanting quality assurance for the work they've done, the majority party seems to not trust local governments to agree on those ideas if they want to, even if they've already banned them at a state level. And to cap all of this off, we now have a legislature getting ready to lower the minimum wage for thousands of this state's lowest paid workers because local governments have passed these ordinances. Under Section 12B of this bill, it is unimaginable that this legislature of the great state of Iowa will be voting to lower the wages of its own citizens. The elected representatives of Johnson, Polk, Lynn, they were responding to the needs of their citizens. Now Lee County and Black Hawk County are taking steps to do the right thing as well, even in the face of what you're doing and what you're trying to do with this bill. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to live on minimum wage. And unless you have ever survived on minimum wage, or your one parent has for your family, you know it's not just a matter of working harder or some abstract economic development debate about what kind of job should Iowa incentivize. The question is, how do we make it as a family through this week? How can someone raise a family on the current minimum wage and not live in poverty? Iowa is better than this. This past election, both parties tried to claim to be the champions of the working class. One party quite possibly won on that very message from president on down ticket. Well, that party now controls the Iowa House, the Iowa Senate, and the governorship, yet quite frankly, that same party seems content to do all it can to lower Iowans' wages, use Chinese steel on bridges skirting Buy American laws, and taking away rights of employees to speak united to their employers. Taken as a whole, House File 295 is a mean-spirited law with no redeeming qualities whatsoever. The majority party conspiring with dark money groups and others to lower the wages of our poor
Charles.
citizens is absolutely the lowest, most despicable thing that has ever happened in this beautiful building. Thank you.
Reverend, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and share my voice. I am Debbie Griffin, and I am the pastor of Downtown Disciples. I'm of Des Moines, Iowa, and I oppose HF 295 as a citizen and as a pastor and as a neighbor. I am the daughter of a Republican father and a Democrat mother. So this is not a partisan issue for me. This is an issue of justice. As a pastor, I am called to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly, not only with my God, but with my neighbor. I'm here to share with you that my neighbors and my parishioners are hurting. I have served rural and urban churches in the state of Iowa. I have witnessed people lose their dignity and honor, working more than 40 hours a week and not able to even provide enough food for their families. To have to depend on food pantries and come to their pastor and ask for help denies people their dignity, their honor, and their self-respect. Iowans deserve a living wage. I was able to sit in on some of the discussions at the Polk County Supervisors meetings when they diligently studied, researched, spent time, listened to their neighbors, and came to the conclusion to raise the minimum wage. I am so shocked and appalled that the State House would reverse the hard work of local government. They are better suited and prepared to know the needs of their constituents and of their neighbors. I ask you to not steal from them their right and responsibility to care for the people that they are neighbors with, the people that they see on their streets and in their churches. I ask you on behalf of my parishioners, my neighbors, and my God to reject HF 295.
Thank you, Reverend. Larry?
Yeah, my name is Larry Ginter. I'm from Rhodes, it's Marshall County. I'm a third-generation family farmer and now retired. I'm here to speak out against any effort by the state legislature to suppress or preempt local municipalities or counties from implementing their own minimum wage increases. I find it interesting and hypocritical for Republican legislators to overthrow a local control effort when they have for many years claimed they are for local control. But of course, we all know that isn't true. Witness their unwillingness to allow citizen local control on other issues like siting of hog factories, or of course the Des Moines Water Works issue. Ever since I started my activism back in 1965, through my Catholic upbringing, I understood the importance of a living wage. I also understood that a living wage is a family values issue. Republicans like to champion family values only if it suits their worldview. Republican legislators appear to be drunk with power, with no scruples about undermining efforts to suppress wages. After all, we saw them undermine collective bargaining in this state. Clearly, House File 295 is a shameful power grab by Republicans to usurp local government's right to set wages. There's an old proverb. It's about people who let power go to their heads. It goes like this: give a person enough rope, they will hang themselves. Apparently, there's some in this building who feel they need more rope. Finally, there's an author that once said there's two great forces in this world that are fighting for power. One is kindness, and one is cruelty. Now, it looks like this bill is all for cruelty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Mr. Noble?
My name is John Noble. I'm a resident of Des Moines, Iowa. I attend Drake University. I'm actually coming to the end of my time at Drake University, and I also, as it would imply, have recently left high school. In high school and college, there's lots of talk that goes on about bullying, about the importance of standing up to bullies, about stopping bullying when we see it in our tracks. And let me tell you, I am seeing bullying at this legislature today. I see bullying in the form of House File 295 that seeks to strip local control from the people who know what's best for their communities. I see bullying in a legislature that treats workers like dirt and has done it again and again and again. Let me tell you, this is not a left issue, this is not a right issue. This is a right or a wrong issue, and this bill is wrong. Bullies operate this way. Bullies divide people. Bullies take back the right of local officials from the party of so-called local government. I think this represents the absolute deepest of hypocrisy. For the party of local small government to tell local small governments that we are retracting your right to do what's best for your citizens represents the deepest hypocrisy. Bullies operate this way, and I agree with Larry in saying that this is absolutely an act of cruelty, acted out at the institutional level, acted out at the state level, and if I wouldn't want to see it on campus, I sure as hell don't want to see it from my legislators. I'll let you know that. Local people know what's best for them. Workers know what's best for them, and what's best for them is a living wage. When the people tell their local representatives that we need a living wage, and those representatives take a step towards a living wage, and you say no not only to a living wage, but to any wage increase, and you in fact lower people's wages, you operate as bullies. But the people of this state will not stand up for bullies in our schools. We will not stand up for bullies in our homes. And I will tell you, we will not stand up for the bullying of working people in our state house.
Thank you. Miss Young?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Lori Young. I'm a lifelong resident of Iowa, born and raised here in Des Moines. I am a proud member of Iowa CCI and secretary of their board of directors. After multiple sessions of deliberation, state lawmakers could not agree to raise the minimum wage here in Iowa. So Polk County, along with Johnson, Lynn, and Wapello counties, did the right thing. They did the thoughtful research. They debated. But most of all, they listened to their constituents, Iowa residents, and made a bold and humane decision to raise the minimum wage. In fact, in Johnson, Lynn, and Wapello counties, minimum wage increases went into effect January 1st this year. And in Polk County, an increase in the minimum wage to $8.75 is set to take effect April 1st. Now, after the fact, our state government finally has an opinion, and it's the wrong one. H-295, a preemptive bill, would in effect override these independent county ordinances and in effect lower the salaries of hardworking Iowans back to $7.25 an hour. What kind of sense does that make? Over 367,000 Iowans live in poverty, including 110,000 children, while many more are living on the brink of poverty. How could you, with any humane decency, take away income from our lowest paid Iowans, who I call the working poor? You didn't even give these increases a chance to take effect, to base a decision to preempt these ordinances without any results, data, or metrics that indicate these meager, and I do mean meager, wage increases have any detrimental effect. It's time we put people over politics and bad policy. We're talking about survival here, just being able to make ends meet, not an overpriced wage that allows for elaborate vacations and the latest model car. We're talking about if I work 40 hours a week, I should be able to pay my rent, buy food and clothing, and care for myself. And in a climate when public health care is in jeopardy, even if our minimum wage brothers and sisters could even afford it, cutting their salaries back to the federal minimum wage level would make affording public health care impossible. I ask you, could you live on $7.25 an hour? I doubt you could. Iowans deserve a steady increase in the minimum wage, phased in over time, up to $15 per hour, which is a living wage. We need a mind shift where we value the individual versus value excessive profits. This is about people who put in an honest day's work like you and I, people who pay their taxes like you and I.
Thank you, Mrs. Young.
They deserve leaders who care about their basic human needs. I stand along with my friends at Iowa CCI against House File 295 for these reasons. A bill that could cut the salaries of thousands of Iowans to a disgraceful level and negate the value of their life. Thank you.
Zachary?
Hello, my name is Zachary Felser, and before I begin, I'd just like to say I'm not a paid protester. So, I just want to read a quote from FDR that said that, well, he said that no business which depends for existence on paying less than living wages to its workers has any right to continue in this country. Now, I didn't prepare much beyond this, so I'm just going to wing it, really. Folks, I get it. You know, some of us are Republicans, some of us are Democrats, some of us are liberals and conservatives, and we don't get along on a lot of things. But the fact is that Iowans need a living wage, whatever county. Now, if you're living in Pocahontas County, you probably have a lot smaller populace than in Polk County, and it makes sense. But having a wage that is, or cutting the ability for people to negotiate a wage across the board doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for urban populations where there are more people and more businesses and more commerce conducted every single day be paid the same amount as a county where they have maybe 5,000, 4,000, 3,000 people living in them. That's all I really had to say. Thank you for your time. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cooper? Sue?
Thank you. I'm Sue Ravenscroft. I'm a board member of Iowa Policy Project, and I'm a business professor. I've noticed over the years that money is funny. It works very differently depending on whose pocket it's in. So when it comes to legislators, to CEOs, to sports coaches, and movie stars, you have to pay a lot to get good service and good work and skilled people. But when it comes to people who do the minor things like taking care of your children, cleaning your beds, cleaning hotels, doing that kind of work, paying less is seen as better. Why is that? There's an economist whose name is Ernst Fair. He's world renowned, and he has a different idea about how money works. What he says is that he's incorporated the idea of fairness into the labor economics world. It's an interesting, novel concept in that world. And he says we should talk about efficiency wages. What are those? Some companies pay them, and it benefits them greatly. Efficiency wages are wages where employers pay more than the minimum market clearing amount. Why would they do that? Why would they pay more than they have to? They do it for lots of good reasons. To inspire worker loyalty, to reduce turnover cost, to increase productivity, to avoid game playing by employees. And they also do it because they have a sense of fairness. The minimum wage has not risen in our country with productivity raises. The maximum purchasing power of the minimum wage was in 1968. I was in college then. I could work part-time and go to college. Students can't do that now. So why shouldn't workers earn what their efforts have created? As their productivity has gained, the minimum wage should gain commensurately. Some companies, like Costco, pay their workers a lot more than comparative companies like Walmart. Costco's workers generate far more sales per employee than Walmart's. Costco has far lower turnover cost than Walmart. So it makes sense to pay people well. I urge you to vote no on this bill. And I also have one more point if I haven't run out of time. Businesses deal with lots of data. Big data is really a big topic in business now. The argument that, it's so complicated and people can't handle the complexity of different wages in different counties is really, truly silly and trivial and just not believable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Reverend?
Hi, my name is Wendy Abrahamson, and I am an Episcopal priest. I serve St. Paul's Episcopal Church in Grinnell, Iowa, and I am newly a registered lobbyist for the Episcopal Church in Iowa. The Episcopal Diocese of Iowa opposes this bill for many reasons, but for three specifically. The first is that the Episcopal Church has supported a fair minimum and living wage for decades. Our national church encourages her members to advocate for just wages, and we support actually a $15 per hour living wage. As a pastor, I can testify to the many working people I and my congregation and many congregations across Iowa assist financially because their wages are low, even if they work full time. The second reason is that the Episcopal Church has long been in favor of protecting the environment, which is also an aspect of this bill. This includes supporting regulations that require businesses to adhere to environmental standards. People of faith actually fast from using things like plastic bags or drinking straws because of the detrimental effect these and other materials have on God's creation. The third reason is that the Episcopal Church supports civil rights protections for all people, including regulations that protect them from discrimination on the job for any number of reasons, as well as those that would provide for insurance or other benefits. And again, as a pastor, I have firsthand knowledge of the negative effect that can come when people are not protected at work. House File 295, if passed, would suppress advances in worker and environmental protections if Iowa cities and counties are prohibited from establishing their own higher and better norm than the state. We believe that God calls all of us to use our God-given talents, and these are talents that you as legislators rightly use when you seek to form legislation to provide the healthiest climate for Iowans. This is the body of policy and law that you create, and it is a living experiment for the betterment of our citizens. This bill would rob you and all Iowans of the richness of allowing municipalities to find new ways to provide justice for workers and protection for the environment. We would lose living tests that civil rights protections and living wages can exist in a healthy and thriving business environment. And we come to this position as Christians responding to a biblical charge from God. And there are many scriptural examples, and I won't read them all here, but I will be emailing them to you all. And I thank you very much for allowing me to speak, and thank you for your work on behalf of your fellow citizens in Iowa.
Thank you, ma'am. Patrick?
Yep. I'm Patrick Stahl from 1301 8th Street here in Des Moines. I drive for a catering company, and I've worked about 20 different jobs in 5 cities since I was 14, about half of them on the minimum wage. And that's why I've been fighting with my friends at Iowa CCI and other associated community and labor groups to increase the minimum wage for the past 3 years. And first we went to the federal level and asked for a higher minimum wage, and the Republicans in that level said, no, this is an issue that needs to be decided by the states. So 2 years ago, we came to the State House and asked for an increased minimum wage here, and the Republicans said, no, this is something that needs to be decided by local governments. And last year, we went and convinced local governments to raise the minimum wage in their communities, and now the Republicans are coming back and saying, no, this is something we need to decide at the state level. This bill is a hypocritical demonstration of Republicans' willingness to lie, politic, and cheat their way into serving their corporate cronies. You don't care about local control or good local government. You care about the interests of the employers over the workers. Make no mistake. This is a bill directly aimed at lowering the minimum wage for workers in Iowa City and Des Moines that have seen that minimum wage go up. This is not a popular bill. 7 in 10 Iowans favor an increase in the minimum wage. This is not a bill that Iowans support. This bill represents the will of a minority, the will of the corporate interests who fund Republican campaigns. This bill is a legislative coup that intends to usurp the right of local governments to determine what a living wage is for the residents. I would say that the Republican scumbags that are supporting this bill should be ashamed of themselves, but it's clear that they're not really capable of shame. So my message is actually to everyone in the room and outside that's opposed to this bill. These people are taking food out of the mouths of working Iowans. We are in a class war. And right now, the rich and their scumbag Republican friends are winning. We need to remember this day and stand up and fight back tomorrow. Thank you.
Mr. Bernard, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Robert Bernard. I live in Urbandale. I'm 70 years old, and when I started working, the minimum wage was 90 cents an hour. It's gone up $7.25 in this state. That's a pittance. It should be much more than that. And over my work in state judicial branch of government, I've heard these types of discussions countless number of times. The same sky is falling from businesses. Businesses end up adjusting to whatever raises are that occur in the minimum wage and their employment structure. And that may mean raising their cost of their services, but I expect that. But it's important to us that we have people that can make a minimum wage and live. Even the plans in Des Moines, I think, should be substantially more than what they are, but they're a step in the right direction, as it is in the other 2 counties that have also approved this. I think if this bill passes, it's terrible. It should not pass. If the state wants to raise the minimum wage, do it. We've had 7 years as that opportunity to do that. It's not occurred either way, and there's nothing moved to get that done now. So I think just to keep it as it is right now, and down the future, if our executive and legislative branches can get together and raise their minimum wage substantially, that's important. You know, it's $13 an hour is a bare minimum to get by for a single person, and with one person and one child, it's like $21 an hour. Now, I can't begin to think about living at $7.25 an hour anymore. I don't like pieces that are in the bill about leave and hiring and practices and employment benefits and scheduling. Those should be local considerations at this juncture in life. They shouldn't be in this bill, so I want to get on that. The minimum, another part of this bill is on the containers, so I'm going to digress here a little bit, like a few seconds left. So I think I'd like to see that piece put into place more by where you just use fabric bags in lieu of the plastic and some of the other items. That's a minuscule part of this bill as I read it. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to present today, and I hope you're able to vote down on this bill and let it die and not even get out of committee. Thank you.
Ms. Elliott, go ahead.
My name is Janice Elliott. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I am against this preemption bill, House File 295. It takes power away from Polk County citizens and its supervisors. I went to the meetings. I watched the Polk County Board of Supervisors spend many hours listening to residents. I watched them discuss the pros and cons of raising minimum wage. Their decision to increase the minimum wage for Polk County was not reached lightly. I have a hard time understanding how lawmakers feel they have a right to reverse this decision. Certainly, Polk County supervisors understand their community's needs better than many Iowa legislators who represent rural areas with their own set of problems and concerns. 65,000 of Polk County's most vulnerable citizens will be subject to having their wages lowered. These people are still not earning a minimum wage. I am a retired teacher, and that's why I am here. I've spent year after year looking at the devastation that poverty causes in emotional and physical health in students in my classroom. If not a belief in local control, then the power of compassion should guide you to vote against this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming to the public hearing. We appreciate this. This room will be reserved at 7 o'clock in about 30 minutes for Representative Reiser and State Government Committee. Have a great day.